Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're watching this, you might have heard some news that's causing a lot of people concern right now. We're talking about SNAP benefits, which many Americans depend on to put food on their tables. If you've been getting SNAP assistance, you need to pay attention to what we're about to break down for you because there's something happening that could directly affect your ability to keep receiving these benefits. So stick around as we dig into this breaking news and give you all the information you need to know about why SNAP recipients might have to reapply for their benefits. Before we jump into all the details, I want to make sure everyone understands what SNAP actually is. SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and it's a federal program that helps low-income people buy groceries and food. Some people still call it food stamps, which was the older name for the program. This benefit has been helping families across America for decades, and right now, there are millions of people who rely on SNAP to help them feed themselves and their families. If you're getting SNAP benefits, you're probably using an EBT card, which is an electronic debit card that works kind of like a regular debit card, but is specifically for buying eligible food items at grocery stores and other approved retailers. Now that we've got that background covered, let's talk about what's changing. The big news that's making headlines is that there have been announcements from government agencies suggesting that SNAP recipients are going to need to reapply for their benefits. Now, this isn't something that happens out of the blue. This is tied to something called the continuous enrollment flexibilities that were in place during the COVID-19 pandemic. During the pandemic, the government made it easier for people to keep their SNAP benefits without having to go through the normal recertification process every single year. They basically put a pause on some of the usual requirements because so many people were struggling and the government wanted to make sure that people had access to food assistance during such an uncertain time. What this means is that for the last few years, a lot of SNAP recipients didn't have to do the regular paperwork and reapplication process that normally happens. The continuous enrollment flexibilities meant that people could keep their benefits without jumping through all the usual hoops. However, these emergency measures were always meant to be temporary. They were specifically put in place to help people during the pandemic emergency. And now that the emergency period is ending or has ended in many cases, these temporary flexibilities are being phased out. And that's where the reapplication requirement comes in. So here's what's actually happening. States have been given guidance to start ending these continuous enrollment flexibilities, and they're doing that on different timelines. What this means is that people who have been receiving SNAP benefits without having to re-certify are now going to have to go through the re-certification process again. This is basically the government checking to make sure that people still meet the eligibility requirements for SNAP. The re-certification process involves providing information about your income, your living situation, the number of people in your household, and other factors that determine whether you qualify for benefits and how much those benefits should be should. Now, before you panic, here's the important thing to understand. Just because you have to reapply doesn't mean you're definitely going to lose your benefits. If you still meet the eligibility requirements, you should be able to keep getting SNAP assistance. The reapplication is basically just confirming that you still qualify. However, this is definitely something you need to take seriously, because if you don't complete the reapplication process when you're supposed to, you could lose your benefits, and that would be a real problem for people who depend on these benefits to buy groceries. Let's talk about the timeline, because this matters a lot. Different states have been ending their continuous enrollment flexibilities on different schedules. Some states started the process earlier in 2023, while others continued with the flexibilities for longer. The federal government gave states the option to unwind these emergency measures gradually. So, some states wrapped things up pretty quickly, while others spread it out over a longer period. The key thing here is that you need to find out what the timeline is for your specific state, because that will tell you when you need to reapply. Here's where I want to emphasize something really important. When your state announces that reapplication is required, they will notify you. Most states send out notices through the mail, And many also send email or text message alerts if you have those on file. You might also be able to check the status of your case on your state's benefits website. Do not wait for someone to remind you. You need to be proactive about this. Mark your calendar, keep any notices you receive from your state, and make a plan to handle your reapplication before the deadline. Missing a deadline could mean losing your benefits, and that's not something you want to happen. The reapplication process itself is actually pretty straightforward if you prepare for it. You'll typically need to provide proof of income, which could be recent pay stubs, tax returns, or proof of unemployment benefits. If you're not working, you'll need to verify how many people live in your household. You might need to provide proof of residency, which could be a utility bill or lease agreement. And you'll need to provide information about your expenses if they're relevant to your case. Some states let you apply online through their website. Some require you to go in person to an office, and some allow you to mail in your application or do it over the phone. Check your state's specific rules to see what option works best for you. One of the things that's been making this news so concerning for people is that there's been a lot of worry about what happens if you miss the deadline or if there are any complications with your reapplication. Here's what you need to know about that. If you don't reapply by your deadline, your benefits will stop. The government can't just keep giving you benefits if they don't know whether you still qualify. However, if you apply after your deadline, you can usually still get benefits, but there might be a gap where you don't receive assistance. So really the best thing to do is to get your reapplication done on time so that there's no interruption to your benefits. It's also worth knowing that if you're having trouble with your reapplication, there are people you can ask for help. Local community organizations, nonprofits, and social services offices often have staff members who can help you navigate the reapplication process. They can help you understand what documents you need, help you gather them, and help you submit your application. If you're struggling, don't hesitate to reach out for assistance. That's what these organizations are there for. Now, let's talk about what you actually need to do if you're a SNAP recipient. First, you need to find out if your state is currently requiring recertification or if it's coming soon. You can do this by going to your state's SNAP website or calling the SNAP office number on the back of your EBT card. Second, you need to gather all the documents you'll need for reapplication. Get your recent pay-ubs together, find your tax return, get any proof you have of other income, and get proof of your residency. Third, you need to submit your reapplication before the deadline. Don't put it off. The sooner you get it done, the sooner you can have peace of mind knowing that your benefits are secure. Something else that's important to mention is that the reapplication requirements haven't changed just because it's happening now. The eligibility rules for SNAP are the same as they've always been. You need to have an income that's at or below a certain level, which varies depending on your state and household size. You generally need to be a United States citizen or legal resident. You need to provide your Social Security number, and you need to report any other household members who are living with you. If you qualified before, you'll almost certainly qualify now, unless your circumstances have changed dramatically. I also want to address something that a lot of people are worried about, which is whether this is part of some kind of policy change that's going to make it harder to get benefits in the future. Here's the reality. The relocation is happening because the pandemic emergency measures are ending, not because the government is trying to cut people off from benefits. SNAP is still there, the program is still functioning. People are still going to be able to get assistance if they qualify. What's changing is just going back to the normal process instead of the emergency process that was in place during the pandemic. So, while it's definitely something you need to take seriously and handle promptly, it's not a sign that the program is going away or that benefits are being eliminated. Now, let me talk about something that might be helpful for people who are stressed about this. If you're worried about how you're going to buy groceries while you're waiting for your reapplication to be processed, there are other resources available. Food banks and local mutual aid organizations often have groceries available for people in need. Community organizations might offer food assistance programs. If you're struggling while your case is being processed, reaching out to a local food bank or community organization could help bridge the gap. You don't have to wait until your SNAP benefits are back if there's a delay. Another important thing to know is that if there are any issues with your reapplication, you have the right to appeal. If your application is denied or if your benefits are reduced and you believe that's incorrect, you can request a hearing to have a decision maker review your case. Don't just accept a decision you disagree with. You have rights in this process, and you should use them if you need to. Let me also mention something about what documents to hang on to. Once you submit your reapplication, don't throw away the original documents you used to apply. Keep copies for yourself if there are any questions about your application later. Having those documents on hand will make it much easier to resolve any issues quickly. It's also a good idea to keep a record of when you submitted your application and any confirmation numbers or receipts you get from the submission. One thing that's been helpful for a lot of people going through this process is getting organized and making a checklist. Write down all the documents you need to gather. Check them off as you collect them. Write down the deadline for your application and make a note about which method you're going to use to submit your application. Having this kind of organization can help reduce stress and make sure you don't miss anything important. I want to be really clear about something because I know there's been a lot of confusion and misinformation going around about this. The relocation requirement is real and it's important, but it's not a surprise attack or some kind of secret government action. This has been planned and communicated for a while. The government has been working with states to gradually end these emergency measures. There have been notices and announcements. The process is straightforward and the same one that's been used before the pandemic. So, while you do need to take action, you shouldn't feel like this is some kind of emergency or crisis. It's a normal process that happens when emergency measures end. For people who might be concerned about their eligibility, here's something to keep in mind. If your circumstances have changed since the pandemic started, you need to report that honestly on your application. If you've started working or your income has increased, that might affect your benefits. But it's much better to report that truthfully than to try to hide it. Providing false information on your SNAP application can result in serious consequences, including being disqualified from the program and potentially facing legal action. So, be honest, provide accurate information, and let the process work the way it's designed to work. I also want to mention that there are a lot of resources available online if you want to learn more about SNAP and the reapplication process. The official SNAP website has information about eligibility, application procedures, and where to find help in your area. Your state's specific SNAP program website should have information about what's happening in your state and what you need to do. And organizations that work with low-income families often have guides and resources to help people navigate this process. Don't hesitate to look these up if you want more information. Here's what I'd say to wrap this up. If you're receiving SNAP benefits, the most important thing you can do right now is to find out whether your state is currently requiring recertification or if it's coming soon. Once you know when your deadline is, start gathering your documents right away. Don't wait until the last minute. Get your reapplication submitted well before the deadline so that you have time to address any issues if they come up. Remember that this is a normal process. You've probably done it before if you've been on SNAP for a while, and millions of other people are going through the same thing right now. You're not alone in this. And if you're struggling with the process or if you're worried about your situation, please reach out for help. There are people and organizations ready to assist you, whether that's a local community center, a nonprofit organization, a social services office, or someone you know who's been through this before. Getting support can make this process much easier and less stressful. This is what these resources exist for, and using them doesn't make you weak or a burden. It makes you smart and proactive. The bottom line is this: yes, SNAP recipients are going to need to reapply as the emergency flexibilities come to an end. But if you take action now, gather your documents, and submit your application before the deadline, You should be able to continue receiving benefits without any problem. This is a process you can absolutely handle, and we're here to help you understand what's happening every step of the way. Thanks so much for watching, and please let us know in the comments if you have any questions about SNAP or the reapplication process.